It's over. You know it's over. It's been over for, say it honestly, months, years maybe. The relationship ended, the friend went silent, the job let you go, the door closed, the apology never came. Everyone around you has filed it under the past. The world moved on so completely that mentioning it now would feel embarrassing. And yet, some part of you is still standing in that room, still finishing that argument. You've won it hundreds of times by now. In the shower, in traffic, in the dark. Still checking, sometimes, what they're up to. Still keeping the box you can't open and can't throw away. Still waiting, and this is the one you'd never admit, for a resolution that has no delivery address anymore. An apology from someone who will never give it. An ending that ends properly this time. People say, just let it go, as if you hadn't thought of that. As if you're holding on for fun. Here's what they don't understand, what you barely understand yourself. You're not choosing to hold on. You've tried letting go, you've done the rituals, deleted the photos, then undeleted them, written the letter you didn't send, declared closure on a Tuesday and been back in that room by Friday. The fist doesn't answer to the part of you that makes declarations. And by now, if you've been in this valley before, you know that sentence. Nothing in us that loops answers to the part that knows things. So tonight, a different question. Not, how do I let go? You've heard every answer to that one. Instead, what did the oldest observers of human nature actually see when they watched people trapped in exactly this? Because 3,000 years ago, they wrote a chapter about the moment of release, and their answer will rearrange how you think about your fist. They said, letting go isn't a decision at all. It's a storm. And storms have conditions. Welcome back to the valley. The book, the I Ching, the Book of Changes. 64 hexagrams, 64 weather systems of a human life. We've walked the chapters on dangerous attraction, repeated mistakes, empty summits, and the mind that won't stop. Today, chapter 40. It's called Shay, usually translated Deliverance. Release, the untying of the knot, and the image the ancients chose for it tells you everything before the text says a word. Thunder over water. Specifically, the storm breaking. Anyone who's lived through a human summer knows the feeling this hexagram is built on. The air thickening for days, pressure sitting on everything, that headachy electric heaviness where the whole sky feels like a held breath. And then thunder cracks, the rain finally comes down, and the world exhales. An hour later the air is washed, the leaves are bright, everything is lighter and cleaner and somehow forgiven. That, the ancients said, is what release actually is. Not scissors. Not a decision, a storm that breaks when the conditions are met. Notice what this instantly explains. Why every letting go ritual you've performed has failed. You've been trying to decide a thunderstorm into happening. You've been standing in the thick, pressurized air, announcing the storm is now over, while the sky, which does not attend announcements, kept charging. The fist isn't defying you. It's obeying weather. So what are the conditions? The chapter's judgment and lines read like a storm manual, and 3 of its instructions matter for your fist. First, and this is the strangest one, the chapter is mostly about what to do after the release begins. The judgment says, paraphrased, if there is nowhere you still need to go, return, and returning brings good fortune. If there is still something to be done, do it quickly. Read that carefully. Once the knot loosens, once the storm finally breaks, the instruction is, don't stay there. Don't linger at the site of release, admiring the untied rope, narrating the storm, building a museum of the ending. Handle any last necessary business fast, and then go back. Back to ordinary life, ordinary bread, ordinary mornings. The ancients had watched people escape a prison and then set up camp outside its walls. Half of what you call not being able to let go is exactly this. The thing released you long ago, and you have stayed at the site, retying the knot daily, just to feel it untie again. The replayed argument you keep winning? That's a museum tour. You're the curator now. The ending ended. The exhibit is yours. Second, the burden in the carriage. One line paints a picture the ancients found almost funny. A man riding in a carriage, a position of ease, of having moved up in life, while still carrying his heavy pack on his own back. He won't set it down, even seated. And the text says, this posture invites robbers. Traditionally, the image warns about occupying a new position while still behaving as if you belong to the old one. Read psychologically now. It asks an uncomfortable question. What happens when you carry the last betrayal into the new relationship? The pack may feel protective, but it advertises exactly where you're vulnerable, and it can teach the new story to rhyme with the old one. The pack doesn't protect you from the past, it gives the past a role in the future. Third, free the toe. Another line says, strangely, deliver yourself from your great toe, then the trustworthy companion arrives. Commentators have argued for centuries about exactly what that toe represents: an inferior attachment, a habitual entanglement, something so close and familiar that you mistake it for part of yourself. Read that image in an ordinary life, and it becomes practical. Before you can release the enormous grief, loosen one small behavior that keeps you facing backward. The checking, the anniversary you still mark, the detour past the old street. This is not the only possible reading of the line, but it understands leverage. Movement changes when the smallest point of contact changes. Openness makes room before you feel ready for what fills it. But the heart of this chapter, the line I promised you, isn't addressed to the person holding on at all. It's in the image, the part of each hexagram where the ancients describe what a wise person does when this weather arrives. For the thunderstorm of deliverance, it says, thunder and rain set in, and the superior person pardons mistakes and forgives misdeeds. In the chapter about release, the knot, the fist, the return to ordinary life, the instruction is not to keep organizing the world around prosecution. It is to pardon mistakes and forgive misdeeds. Not because every offender deserves another place in your life, but because your life deserves to stop being built around the case. The way the storm clears the sky. Now hold on, because I know what that word does. Forgive has been weaponized at you. You've been told to forgive as a moral duty, as a spiritual performance, as a way of letting people escape what they did. That is not what this chapter is doing, and the difference is everything. Look at where the instruction sits. Inside the storm image. Rain doesn't fall on the field because the field deserves it. Rain falls because the sky cannot come clean while it's still holding the charge. The forgiveness in this chapter isn't a verdict about them. It's drainage. It's the sky's own requirement. The ancients weren't saying they deserve release. They were saying something colder and kinder at once. Your air cannot clear while the charge is held, and the charge doesn't care who is right. And notice what forgiveness means storm-wise. Not reconciliation, not amnesia, not the return of trust. The text says pardon mistakes. It never says rehire the robber. It means precisely declining to remain the prosecutor. The trial you keep conducting at 2 a.m. has one juror, one defendant who never appears, and one prosecutor who never gets to rest. And all three are you. Pardoning isn't announcing the defendant innocent. It's closing the courtroom because the court costs are eating the judge alive. Which brings us to the reframe underneath the whole chapter, the one that finally makes sense of why you, specifically, can't let go. Ask the real question. What is the fist actually holding? Not the person. They're gone. Not the job, not the year, not the door. Those exist only in the past, and your hand can't reach the past. Open the fist honestly and look. What's in there is unfinished business. The apology owed, the ending unended, the argument unresolved, the justice undelivered. You are not holding them. You are holding an open account, and here is the mercy and the horror of it. An account stays open exactly as long as you keep showing up to collect. The debtor defaulted years ago. The collection agency, the 2 a.m. shifts, the museum tours, the courtroom sessions is staffed entirely by you. Keeping the debt alive by billing it. The storm chapter's whole teaching is that release happens when the account is written off. Not because it wasn't real, not because they didn't owe it, but because a written-off debt stops charging interest to the creditor. That is the accounting image behind this reading of pardon. Closing a true debt you have chosen to stop collecting. The moment of deliverance, the thunderclap, is rarely the dramatic ceremony you've been rehearsing. Ask anyone who's actually felt it. It comes quietly, often on an ordinary afternoon, the day some deep ledger keeper in you finally concludes the collection costs more than the debt. The air breaks, the rain comes, and then, the judgment's instruction, remember, you don't build a monument in the cleared field. You go back. Ordinary bread, ordinary mornings. The storm doesn't hang around congratulating itself. It rains, it clears, it's gone, and the whole world smells new. The thunderstorm chapter. The instruction to leave the site of release quickly. The pack carried into the carriage, recruiting robbers. The toe before the grief. And at the center of your deliverance, the strangest prescription in the book: pardon, not as their verdict, but as your drainage. Next time, one of the loneliest questions in the valley: why you feel unseen. The ancients wrote a chapter about a well, clear, cold, full, that an entire town walks past every single day without lowering the bucket. If you've ever felt like unused depth, that chapter was written about you, and it ends with one of the most hopeful lines in the entire book. But before you go, you know what I'm going to ask. What ended long ago that some part of you is still holding? You don't have to name names, just the shape of it, and how many years the museum has been open. Put it in the comments, and read the others. Watching strangers describe their fists has a strange effect on your own. Somewhere in the scroll, you may even feel a first drop. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll know when the next Another Valley story is available.